Hi, it's Steph, and we're at Lowe's, and they have a bunch of new shrubs and perennials. So let's go ahead and take a look at the July inventory at Lowe's. Check out these beautiful 9-barks. These are by First Editions, and they are the Fireside 9-bark. And they have a really beautiful, vibrant orange color in the new foliage. It's like an orange red, and this really dark color afterwards. Look at that. This is a stunning 9-bark. When you look from afar, you can kind of see the little bit of the orange look to them. Very similar to, say, the Proven Winners Ginger Wine 9-bark. Now this one here, the Fireside, is a full sun 9-bark. So this shrub has medium water needs. It gets to be 5 to 7 feet in height and 4 to 6 feet in width. And it is hardy in zones 3 through 7 and drought tolerant. And when you see this, it's usually after they're established. And this is a number 2 container for $27.98. I've been actually thinking about replacing an elderberry shrub that I have in my garden, the black lace elderberry, that hasn't been very healthy. It's gotten some borer issues, and it's also often eaten by deer, where I have another 9-bark that the deer do not touch. So I am considering replacing that elderberry with a 9-bark, and this one might be a good contender. And check out these beauties by Proven Winners. Now, Crepe Myrtles have only begun to show up at our garden centers in the last couple of years. They were only marginally hardy for us here as a zone 6. I'm in Massachusetts in zone 6B, but we have just been upgraded to a 7A. So these, I think, are becoming more available for us now. It says here that this one is hardy in zone 6B through 10, or down to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 6 to 12 feet in height and 8 feet wide. So these can be either grown as a large shrub or trained into a small tree, where as it gets older or bigger, you can go ahead and take off some of these bottom limbs and sort of limb it up and give it more of a tree shape. And this variety is the Center Stage Pink Crepe Myrtle by Proven Winners. And we already talked about the hardiness, but it needs 6+ hours of sun per day. So this is a full sun shrub, and it has spring, summer, and fall interest. Now it's got really beautiful dark foliage. Look at that. And there are 2 varieties here. There is this Center Stage Coral, and there is also the Center Stage Pink that we just looked at. So the Center Stage Pink is a deeper rose kind of pink color, where the coral is a lighter pink coral color. Very beautiful. And the pollinators are all over these. Number 2, almost a 2-gallon, 1.71 gallon container for $28.98. I found yet another variety, the Center Stage Red. Look at that. So pretty. So there is red, pink, and coral available here at my store. They still have lots of roses, some knockouts, as well as these bloomables. And I fell victim to this beauty the other day, and I brought home a Sweet Mademoiselle. It had the most wonderful fragrance and such a beautiful bloom. Now, I don't see any in bloom currently to show you, but that is what it looked like. It's a very frilly kind of coral colored hybrid tea rose. And it gets to be about 5 foot tall, and they really do like a well-draining soil and full sun. So currently I'll be growing mine in a pot and see how it does, but the foliage on these looks really healthy and beautiful. Oh, and it's budded up. Now these bloomable containers are 2 gallons for $28.98. And check out this beauty. This almost looks like my Olivia Rose Austin rose. So frilly in this light pink. And this variety is the Parfuma Summer Romance. It's deeply fragrant, classic pink blooms. We'll give it a sniff test. But look at how beautiful that is. Gorgeous. And this one gets to be 4 feet in height, 3 feet in width. And it's a pink cream color. Again, these are number 2 gallon containers for $28.98. It is very fragrant. It has a very great rose type smell. There are still lots of evergreens, and this one here is one of my favorites. It is the False Cypress, the Gold Mop False Cypress, also known as the Lemon Thread Cypress. And it has a really nice, kind of graceful, loose habit. And these are golden. So to have this nice golden color, they need a lot of sun. If you have them in more shade, they will look like the underside of the leaves here. They'll have more of a murky kind of green look. But I've had several of these in my garden for many years, and they look absolutely beautiful. I actually pruned one up into a small topiary tree because it got a little bit big for the space that it was in. But in general, these grow to be about 3 to 5 feet in height and 2 to 4 feet in width. They're very hardy, down to a zone 4, negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is what they look like. And they like full sun. $13.98 for these. They're a smaller container, which makes them more affordable and easier to plant. They are also pretty deer resistant in my garden. The deer do not touch them. Adding different color evergreens like this is wonderful because they'll give you interest in the garden all year round. You can add green ones, yellow ones, and even blue to provide a lot of interest in your garden. Some Potentilla. Now this is one that up until recently I thought was a perennial, even though it is a shrub, because it's pretty soft feeling actually. And it has these really pretty small dainty blooms. They come in different colors. This one happens to be yellow, but I've seen them in pink and white as well. And recently when we did a garden tour over at Andrew Grossman's house, who was a landscape designer, he had some of these over in his pool garden and they were absolutely beautiful. He had a large grouping of them. So this one here is called Marmalade Potentilla, and it is a full sun shrub. It has green foliage, medium water needs, and is pretty compact at only 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Deer resistant and hardy in zones 2 through 6. The Potentilla is a 2-gallon container for $27.98. And some beautiful phlox. Now this is a wonderful perennial and it is pretty much a staple, I would say, in any perennial garden. This variety is called the Fashionably Early Princess. Now it is a pinkish lavender color and I have the Fashionably Early Crystal and mine blooms for me earlier in the season. So I had a flush of blooms in May and it will start sporadically blooming a second time pretty soon after you deadhead it. So I actually really enjoy it. The one thing that you do have to pay attention to, and something that I've experienced with my own Fashionably Early variety of phlox, is that they are prone to something called powdery mildew. So on the foliage, you'll get what looks like a powdery white substance. It doesn't harm the plant, but it does make it look unsightly. And so to give it proper spacing will allow proper airflow around your plant and prevent some of that powdery mildew from happening. Actually, it did a lot better for me this year than it did last year because I did move some plants out from around it. But this is a real pretty one. And this is in the Lowe's house container here. And it is $8.98. It blooms in summer and it likes full sun. Most phlox like full sun. And with phlox, you also have woodland varieties that actually like shade conditions or part shade. And there's the creeping phlox that is low growing, like a ground cover that blooms earlier in the season. So lots of varieties of phlox, both for different times of the season, as well as heights and growth habit. This is about the time of year in July where the beautiful cone flowers show up. And check these out. This is the Cheyenne Spirit. And what I really love about the Cheyenne Spirit is that you get multiple colors of cone flowers on just one plant, which is really beautiful. You'll get shades of yellow, pink, cream, red, and even orange. Look at this one. That is stunning. And you can see how well it combines with the Veronica or Speedwell in the background because they have different shapes. So the Veronica Speedwell is a spike type purple bloom, and this is a round type bloom with different petal structure. So it just really makes for a beautiful combination in the garden. Here's some more Speedwell or Veronica. This is called the Royal Candles, and you can see that the pollinators absolutely love this plant. And I really love the structure that these vertical type blue or purple plants provide in the garden. And you can prolong the look of these plants by adding different varieties with the same shape. So for example, in the early spring, you can plant salvias, followed by some nepetas. And then as you get into the later spring, early summer, some Veronicas that all provide this kind of vertical structure. Lavenders too. I really love the way that these pair with things like Achillea or yarrow and coneflowers, even phlox. Now this variety here is in the Lowe's house container. They're $8.98 for the Royal Candles. They like full sun. They're an upright perennial that bloom in spring and summer. Now when you see that spring and summer, that usually means that they might start blooming late spring and into the summer. But what you can do to keep these blooming a little bit longer is you can just go in and clean them up or deadhead them. So take off these spent blooms and then the plant will continue to produce more blooms like you see here for a little bit longer. The Royal Candle Speedwell is hardy down to a zone 4 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 12 to 24 inches in height and 12 inches in width. And some dark side of the moon astilbe that they have here in their shade section. Now, this perennial or this astilbe is a perennial, and while astilbe is traditionally a shade plant, this particular variety has been bred to be able to tolerate some sun and shade. I have mine planted in a part sun, part shade location, and it's doing really well. You can see this one here, I believe, has already bloomed. They have a really pretty kind of medium pink bloom, but the dark foliage is stunning, so that even when the plant is not in bloom, this will look really beautiful paired with some other shade plants like Hosta. Look how beautiful that combination looks. Even with some painted ferns, some Japanese painted ferns, gorgeous. I found one of the blooms. So here you can see what the color of the blooms look like on the dark side of the moon astilbe. Now these can get pretty good size. Let's check out the specs on them. So the dark side of the moon astilbe, these are in a 1 gallon container for $15.98. It says that they can take full sun and full shade. So I would say to err on the side of caution and go maybe a part sun with these. And if you are going to give them sun, morning sun will probably be best because it's not as harsh as an afternoon sun. And they get to be about 20 to 22 inches in height, and they need 24-inch spacing, hardy in zones 4 through 9 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And here's a really beautiful hosta. It has this really vibrant kind of yellow chartreuse color, almost lime. It is gorgeous. And this pairs beautifully with this dark side of the moon astilbe. Look at that. What a pretty contrast. Even some Hakanakloa or Japanese forest grass would look stunning with that. But this one here, you can see that if it gets too much sun, because it is so light colored, it needs a good deal of shade. If it gets too much sun, it can start to scorch like you see here. Okay, so hosta in general are a shade plant, and you want to plant them in as much shade as possible. A little bit of sun is okay. Morning sun, 3 to 4 hours. They actually like that to send up these bloom stalks. And this is what the blooms look like on hostas. Some people like them, some people don't. When they open up, they kind of look sort of bell-shaped, as you can see here. But you know who does love these blooms? The pollinators. So sometimes people will leave them up for a week or two until the pollinators, have had a chance to have some, and then you just follow that stem down and trim it. But in general, hostas are grown for their foliage, and they do prefer shade. It says here, shade up to 3 hours of direct sun per day is as much as they can usually handle. This beautiful hosta is the Proven Winners Shadowland Echo the Sun. They are $12.98 for a 2.5 quart. It likes part shade, and it gets to be medium height at 19 inches, and it needs 42-inch spacing. So pretty good size hosta, and hardy in zones 3 through 9 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Hosta are usually very hardy. They're also not very deer resistant. So if you do deal with deer in your garden, you do want to spray them with some deer repellents to keep the deer away. And some beautiful hardy hibiscus. Now I have a couple of these in my garden and I absolutely love them. So I have one by Proven Winners called Perfect Storm, and it is a light pink with a red eye. Stunning. You can see that this one here is all budded up. These usually bloom pretty late for me at some point in August, beginning to mid-August. And the blooms are huge. They're like a dinner plate size bloom. And this also has some dark foliage, which provides another layer of interest on these plants. They also emerge pretty late in the spring. So if you plant one of these now and you start worrying next spring when you don't see it pop through the soil, this is one of the last perennials to break dormancy for me, sometime around mid to end of May. So if you add one, don't worry, it'll come up. It'll just be a little bit late. But the blooms on these are showstoppers in your mid to late summer garden. This variety here happens to be the Proven Winners Summerific Evening Rose. My mom has this one in her garden. It is gorgeous. They have these really large pink blooms, dark foliage. It likes full sun in order to bloom best, but it can tolerate part sun. Hibiscus also likes a pretty moist soil, moist but well draining. So if you have a spot in your garden that has those conditions, this would do really well, because hibiscus are part of like the mallow family, which likes moist soil. And this one here gets to be about 48 inches in height, and it needs 54-inch spacing. I would certainly pay attention to these size requirements because mine gets this size. It's already about 5 feet tall and it's only about 3 years old. So $17.98 for this 2-gallon container. My store also has the Proven Winners Hardy Hibiscus Summerific Berry Awesome, which is another lighter pink variety. This the Evening Rose is like a darker pink, almost fuchsia, and this one is like a medium bubblegum pink. Here's another really pretty hosta with this yellow-green chartreuse foliage, and this one is in the Lowe's House brand container. It is called August Moon, and it likes shade, so 1 to 3 hours of morning sun. These are $8.98, and it says that it blooms in summer, and that is when it sends up these bloom stalks that you see here. And let's check out the size on this one. This variety is hardy to a zone 3, and it is down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets to be 30 inches in height, 30 inches in width. So it needs 24 to 30 inch spacing. Look at this beautiful delphinium. Isn't that stunning? This is about as blue as you're going to get in terms of a flower. That is gorgeous. It's like blue and purple. The pollinators love these. I have a delphinium that a friend shared with me, grown from seed in my garden, and it does have this really gorgeous blue, but it also blooms in white. So one plant produces 2 different colors of blooms. This one here happens to be called the Guardian Lavender Delphinium. It's an upright perennial, and it blooms in summer and fall. So with deadheading, you might get some more blooms come up. It likes full sun. These are $15.98. They're their larger container, and they're hardy to a zone 3 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And they get to be 30 to 39 inches in height and 36 to 39 inches in spacing. And my store still has lots of this beautiful geranium. This is the Boom Chocolada Geranium by Proven Winners. It is a pollinator magnet. Look at that. I'm standing here and the bees are in and out of it. But the other beautiful thing about this geranium is that it has a really pretty foliage. So look at that. It has a darker foliage, has those darker margins there that almost look like a reddish color. So it's really pretty. This is a workhorse geranium. I don't have it in my garden, but I have a friend who does, and she absolutely loves it. She's had it for about 2 years now, and she can't say enough good things about it. So I will have to find a spot in the sun where I can add some of these to my garden. So this likes full sun, the Boom Chocolada by Proven Winners. It is a perennial geranium. This is a 1 gallon container for $15.98. And it is a medium height at 24 to 26 inches in height and needs 28 inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. But that is a really pretty one. And look at the beautiful color on this Veronica here. This is another variety of Speedwell. This one here is by Proven Winners, and it is the Magic Show Ever After. Look at that. So these are also $15.98 for this 1 gallon container. They like full sun and part sun. And these here get to be 14 to 16 inches in height. They need 12 inch spacing, and they're hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. They are stunning. I love these. Such a pretty shade of purple. It's like a clear lavender. Look at this beautiful Rudbeckia or Black-Eyed Susan. Isn't that so pretty? Love it. Has a nice kind of sturdy stem too. And this variety is called the Sonora Black-Eyed Susan. It likes full sun. It's an upright perennial, and it blooms in the summer. And they are $9.98 for this Lowe's house container. And they get to be, let's see, 24 inches in height, 18 inches in width. They're hardy to a zone 5. We're down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the good thing about Rudbeckia varieties, at least in my garden, the deer do not seem to touch them, and they're really great for your mid to late summer garden. So when other things start to peter out, these will show up and look stunning. I actually, for a while, didn't prefer this golden yellow color in my garden, but last year I added some Blue Fortune Agastache and paired with some of this golden yellow Rudbeckia. It looks absolutely gorgeous. So I have a newfound love for this color when it matches with the right perennial. And here you go. I went to go grab that Magic Wands Veronica just to show you the color, because it's very similar to my Blue Fortune Agastache. And look how pretty those look together. Such a pretty color combination. And some grasses. I recently went over to my friend Maureen's house and did a garden tour in her garden, and she has a similar grass. It is like a Maiden hair grass, and it is beautiful. This one happens to be variegated. Now, grasses add a lot of movement and texture to the garden. They look really pretty and they transition so beautifully into your late summer and fall garden because blooms on grasses will show up in the late season and they look like plumes that come up in the grass. There are some actually that are already sort of popping up there and there. And depending on the type of grass, they might look, some look like wheat, they might look a little furry, some are a little softer, but they do provide a lot of beautiful visual interest in the garden. So this one here is the variegated Japanese silver maiden grass. Now these can get pretty large, so you do want to give them a good amount of space, but here is what the tag looks like. This needs full sun. If you don't give grasses enough sun, they can start to kind of flop in the middle. So you certainly want to give them enough sun. And it will bloom in fall, which is when it will send up its plumes. This one here is a 2.5 or 2.3 gallon for $22.98. And it says that it gets 6 feet in height and 3 feet in width, hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 4. And then there is this one here, which is the zebra grass, which has this little bit of striping on the foliage, which is also really pretty. Let's see if we can find some specs on this one. No, there aren't any. My guess is that it gets just as large as that variegated maiden grass there. So I would say probably in the 5 to 6 foot range in terms of height and about 4 to 5 feet in diameter. Again, full sun, and those are $14.98. And a trip in the summer to the Lowe's Garden Center wouldn't be complete without a walk through the clearance section. So let's go ahead and see what kind of goodies we can find. Here's how they do their clearance structure. So anything less than $2 would be $1, $2 to $4.99 for $2, and so forth. So anything that is $15 and up is 50% off. Here's what I look for when I'm shopping for clearance plants. First, I stick my finger in the soil and make sure that things are still getting watered, and they are. Then I look for signs of life. So this is a perennial. So as long as there are still signs of life in it, if you cut back all of this dead foliage that is already done and past its prime, you should have at least some signs of life. If you do, go ahead and plant this in your garden, keep it watered, keep it happy and shaded for the hottest part of the summer, and next spring it should emerge for you. So those are the things that I look for. Make sure that the plant's been watered and make sure there are signs of life. So this one here, you can clearly see that there are some branches that are past their prime. So you would want to clean all those up, but there's still lots of green with some new buds emerging and some blooms. So lots of life left in these here. So this is a bellflower and $8.98. So these would be $4 for these. So the $8.98 perennials would be $4. And this one here, the $12.98 would be $7. Now this is one that I would probably pass on because I don't see a whole lot happening at the base here. So even though there are a couple of sprigs of green foliage, I might pass on this one, but there is one back here that looks pretty good. So this one I would be totally okay with buying. Lots of life left on that one. And this is the Proven Winners Pink Diamonds Dicentra. It likes full sun, part sun. And this one is a little bit different than the traditional Dicentra or Bleeding Heart because it has a ferny foliage and more upright blooms where the others tend to arch. It's short at 12 to 16 inches, needs 16-inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 3 through 9 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Still lots of annuals on the clearance rack. So if you either did some annuals and you have some gaps that you want to fill in, or maybe you have some things that have already died, you still have an option to come and pick up some things at a discounted rate. Some potato vines, and these actually transition beautifully into the fall. So you can plant these with a purple fountain grass in a container, and even with your mums, and they will still look really pretty. Those are the Proven Accents Illusion Sweet Potato Vine, the Emerald Lace, and they're $5.98. So they would be like $4, I believe. There is some Denim and Lace Russian Sage, and this is a more dwarf variety of Russian Sage by Proven Winners. It likes full sun. It is a perennial, so it is on the clearance rack. This would be $7, and this one here gets to be 28 to 32 inches in height. It needs 34-inch spacing, and it is hardy in zones 4 through 9 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can see this one, there are a lot of dry branches, but there is still some life coming out of some of these here. So if you cut out all of these dry twigs and just leave the ones that have some life to them, then I would say that that's pretty good. See that? So that's what you're looking for, plants that still have a good amount of life to them when you're shopping the clearance rack. Here's a totally safe buy because these are hardy as can be. This is an iris, and you can see it looks beautiful. Lots of new green foliage. So you would just go ahead, plant these in your garden, and they'll come back for you next spring. This is a really pretty kind of blue purple type iris, and I absolutely love iris in my garden. So at $8.98, this one would be $4 for these iris. Not a bad price. And here's a really good clearance plant. This is B Balm or Monarda, and this one still looks really healthy. Look at this foliage. It doesn't have powdery mildew. It is just past its prime. So anytime that plants are done blooming, they're not as appealing at the nursery or garden center. So a lot of times they end up on the clearance rack. So if there is a plant that you're, thinking about adding to your garden, if you can hold out just long enough, there's a good chance it might end up on clearance. And then you'll get to enjoy it next year, but buy it this year at a discounted rate. So this one here is $15.98. So this would be 50% off. And at 50% off, this would be about $8. And it is the Proven Winners Leading Lady Amethyst Bee Balm or Monarda. Look at that. It is a perennial for full sun or part sun. This is a 1 gallon container. And it's short stature at 10 to 14 inches in height, 22-inch spacing. And again, like phlox, you want to give these proper spacing because they are prone to that powdery mildew. Giving them proper spacing will allow good airflow around the plant and prevent that from happening as much. So something to keep in mind. And they are hardy in zones 4 through 9 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you see that one only has that one little plant in there. I would go for one of them that are nice and full. So if you're looking through the clearance rack, look for these here. See that? Choose that over that. And some lupin. Lupin has really beautiful leaves as well. Not to mention you get these gorgeous spike type purple blooms. Most of the time they are purple, but they come in other colors as well. This one here is the Blacksmith Lupin, and it likes full sun. It is a perennial. Now they do not like to be moved, but these bloom in the spring and they're a beautiful companion for Japanese iris. So this one here likes 6 hours or more of sun per day. It gets to be 1 to 3 feet in height and 2 feet in width, and they're hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Now make sure that the spot that you pick for these, they can stay in because they get really large. Mine went gangbusters on me. And because they have very deep taproot, they don't like to be moved. So once you plant it, make sure it's a spot that you like and that it has enough space to grow, because if you try to move it, you might lose it. But it is $16.98, and this looks like maybe a 2 gallon, 1.5 gallons for $16.98, 50% off. So it'd be about $8 for these lupin. There are some shrubs on clearance too, although this time there were a lot more perennials than there were shrubs. The last time we looked at Lowe's clearance, there were more shrubs. So this here is the double play Artisan Spirea by Proven Winners. It is a dwarf or petite spirea at only 2 to 2.5 feet tall and wide. It likes sun or part shade, and it is hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And it has spring and summer interest. Now these will get blooms as you see here. Look at that. They're like light pink or medium pink blooms. Just a really pretty shrub. And it pairs so nicely with other plants in your perennial borders. And this one is 50% off. So the price on this one, I believe is $16.98. So it'd be 50% off at around $8. So really great. Now I only see one, but you could tuck this in a flower bed with some things around it, and it would look really pretty as a centerpiece and standalone spirea. Some other plants here. This is a dwarf Nicodutzia. Now these don't have the price on it, so I can't, let's see. Maybe if I flip, oh, here we go. It looks very similar to the Chardonnay Pearls Dutzia by Proven Winners. So this one is the dwarf Nicodutzia. It is a full or part sun shrub. Some people use these in containers as well. And this one here gets to be about 5 feet wide, 2 feet high. So it grows more vertically. And it is hardy in zones 5 through 8 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And 50% off, this one would be about $22.50. And what else do we have here? This looks like it's a rhododendron. Now it has the smaller leaves, which would look like an azalea to me, but it looks like the azaleas have been reclassified as rhododendrons now. But this is a great spring shrub. At $46.98, it'd be about $23.50. And this variety is called the Landmark Rhododendron. It still looks relatively healthy, and it's being watered. Let's see, it gets to be 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide, hardy in zones 5 through 8 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes soil that is moist but not soggy. And part sun. And I can say that about rhododendrons or azaleas. They are understory trees, so they do best planted under the canopy of deciduous trees. I had one that was getting a little bit too much sun and it did become stressed, and then it got something called azalea lace bugs. But once I moved it and I treated it with some BT, it's been doing great ever since. It's much happier planted underneath some trees. And this looks like a holly. Yes, this is a China Girl holly, and it is $11.98 and it is 50% off. Well, $11.98, I think this would be around $7. And it's a part sun shrub, 3 to 6 hours of morning sun. Now with hollies, if you have a male and a female is when you'll get these berries. So the female shrub, as you can see here, will bear the berries, and then you need a male shrub to pollinate it. And it just has to be about 50 to 100 feet away. So even if your neighbor has one, you can still plant this and possibly get berries as long as there's a pollinator nearby. So this one here gets to be 6 feet in height, 5 feet in width, and it is hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 5. Some roses. These are the Easy Elegance, also on the clearance rack, and they are $16.98, so they would be about $8.50. And this one's called Funny Face, and it looks like a really pretty pink bloom. Maybe it has a little bit of a white margin, or it could just be light pink. Now, something that I noticed with these roses that have the open center, I used to have the Knockout Sunny, which was a yellow and white variety. I find that the Japanese beetles are really attracted to them. I'm not saying that's the case with this one, but if you have any experience with that, let me know your thoughts. But this one here looks like it's going to be a smaller type rose. 3 to 4 feet in height, 2 to 3 feet in width. And it likes full sun, blooms repeatedly throughout the season. So this is a reblooming variety. So I would say it's probably similar to something like a landscape shrub rose, like maybe the drift roses and even the knockout roses. Easy Elegance. And some Luna hibiscus. Now I have one of these in white and it is gorgeous. It is white with a little bit of a dark red or pink center, and they also come in this color pink as well as red. I'm going to show you a red one, but they are really pretty. And these here are in the Lowe's type container here for $18.98. They like full sun. Again, they do like a moist but well draining soil, and they are hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 5. Now, I do find that I do have to spray mine for deer. I think they might be attracted to just the bloom buds. They don't really touch the foliage, but these are stunning. When they start to bloom in your mid to late summer garden, they are really eye-catching. Let me show you the red one. Look at the gorgeous wine red color on these. Isn't that so pretty? Look at that. Such a pretty, like, tropical vibe type of plant. This would look amazing planted next to patios or even by swimming pools. You can see here on the tag all of the colors that the Luna hibiscus comes in. I have this one here, the white one. This light pink and the red is also really pretty. Look at this pretty daylily. It's called Fooled Me Daylily, and it's really tall. Look at that scape there. Now, daylilies get their name because each bloom only lasts one day, but they have tons of buds usually. So anytime that you get one of these, maybe the bloom only lasts one day, but there's never a shortage of blooms coming up right behind them. And even when they're not in bloom, you have this clump of grassy foliage that almost makes them look like an ornamental grass. Now, after they're done blooming, they will sometimes, the foliage gets a little unsightly, but all you have to do is just cut it down to the bottom, and within a couple of weeks, you will have a whole new flush of new foliage, and it will really rejuvenate the plant. Deer are also really attracted to the daylily buds, at least in my garden they were, so you might want to protect them by spraying them with some kind of repellent once your daylily starts to bud up. But here is the name on this one. This is the Fooled Me Daylily, and it is hardy, let's see, down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Daylilies are very hardy, and it likes full sun. And here's an amazing find. This is the first time that I've seen these at any nursery or garden center, and they are the better boxwood. The reason that these came into existence is because over the last several years, boxwood have been experiencing a disease called boxwood blight. And this one here has been bred to be disease resistant. So that is great. They get to be about 3 feet high and 4 to 5 feet wide, the better boxwood. This one here is called Babylon Beauty. They might have a couple of different varieties. I'll just take a quick look to see. But it is hardy in USDA growing zones 5 through 9, and they're good for beds, borders, and mass plantings, as well as foundations and containers. Look at that, $16.98 for these. I have one other variety, and this one here is called Heritage, and it looks like it gets 3 to 4 feet high, 2 to 3 feet wide, and hardy in zones 5 through 9. And check out these beautiful bird baths. Now, Milo's happens to carry some statuary, and these are really pretty. They're $64.98. They are a concrete material, and they're 27 inches in height. And the bowl is huge. Look at that. So pretty. Here's some other really pretty ones. This is their hummingbird feeder. And you can see the pretty intricate detail on there with the hummingbird. Now, all of these, I would recommend bringing them in for winter if possible, or at least covering them, especially if you live in an area that gets freezing temperatures. Here in the Northeast, I do have to tip over the top off of my fountains and bird baths, and the ones that I'm able to, I do bring them in the shed. But they are really pretty and provide a nice little accent in the garden, as well as water for our wildlife friends. And look at this pretty pineapple here. Now, there isn't any prices on these particular ones here, but I thought they were really cute, so I wanted to show them to you. The concrete turtles do. These are sea turtles, and they are $29.98. Look at that. This would look really pretty next to a little pond. And check out this beautiful daylily. This one is called Island Cumberland, and it has a frilly yellow outer edge with a apricot color and sort of like a chartreuse green throat. Really pretty. And it actually looks stunning paired with that delphinium there in that blue color. So pretty. Here is the tag on this one. Island Cumberland Daylily, likes full sun. They're $15.98 in these almost 2-gallon containers here. Hardy to a zone 4 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And these get to be 16 inches in height, 20 inches in width. Now, daylilies come in different varieties in terms of height as well as when they bloom. There are early season, mid-season, and late season. So lots of different ones to choose from. Look at this gorgeous, vibrant phlox. It is so bright that it's almost difficult to capture its color on camera. Really pretty. So this here is called the Super Kapow Fuchsia Garden Phlox by Monrovia. It's a full sun perennial, and these are $10.98. And they get to be 16 to 18 inches in height and 14 to 16 inches in width. And they're hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Really pretty. And some more cone flowers. These here, we have some orange and some yellow varieties. Now, this orange one is really pretty, and it is called the saffron, I believe, or adobo. That's what it is. Sombrero Adobo Orange Coneflower. It is a full sun perennial, $10.98 for these, and they get to be 24 to 26 inches in height and 16 to 18 inches in width. Hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, coneflowers I have grown for quite a few years, and it is actually one of my favorite perennials. Something to keep in mind about these is that they do prefer a well-draining soil and in full sun. The only coneflowers that I have ever lost are the ones that stay too moist and they end up succumbing to something called crown rot, where they will rot at the crown and then they won't come back. And that usually happens over the winter where the soil stays wet and damp. But this one here is gorgeous. Look at that. The pollinators absolutely love these, and they're really pretty for your midsummer garden. And they actually, the color on them lasts a really long time. And even if you leave the seed heads up, they provide a lot of visual interest in the garden. And the birds, the finches, love the seeds on them. Let's check out the yellow variety as well. Look at that. So beautiful. Such a large bloom too. Now, the yellow is the Sombrero Lemon Yellow Coneflower. Same conditions, full sun perennial, $10.98, and they get to be 18 to 24 inches in height and 18 inches in width. So they seem that they are just a little bit shorter than the orange. So if you wanted to pair these together, because maybe you do hot colors in your garden, you'd want to plant the orange ones behind and the yellow ones in front. Well, that brings us to the end of the July inventory here at Lowe's. I hope that you've enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.